Welcome to the Outer Realm with MicheleDerocher and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday night segment of The Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, UFO Paranormal Radio Network, 105.3 from the Gulf Coast and 107.7 from New Orleans. We're fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our journey since the very beginning. So thank you, Folgers. We couldn't do it without you, nor would we want to. Also, big thank you to Justin Snicker, a.k.a. Dr. Snick, the Sonic Surgeon, for the contribution of his voice, his time, and his music for the intro you just heard. He's an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music, which can be found on all of your favorite music streaming platforms. Also, big shout-out to Steve McGinnis, the artist behind the banners and logos here at the show. Check him out on Facebook and Instagram. Also specializes in the horror genre, but does phenomenal commission pieces. So tonight, guys, it looks like we're having a little bit of a problem with the Outer Realm Facebook. No surprise, but mind you, it has been a bit of a surprise with respects to having issues with this page because it never happens. So heads up on that. Everything else seems to be functioning. Remember, we are on Rumble, we are on X, and we can see your comments. So I'm just double checking now to make sure. And we are live. So we can see your comments and we can put them up like this, for example. So I'll leave this up for a couple of minutes. Go on over and show Stig's page some love. Come on, like it, subscribe it. And if you haven't done ours while you're at it, feel free to get on in there. Let's just pass that stuff around. And I believe we are also on X, just double checking to make sure that this goes on as well. And we are live there as well. So need to double check, avoiding some of the tech issues. So tonight, guys, you've seen him in our chat, right? He just likes to interact with us all. He's just a sweetie and very, very versed. So David Stig Hansen tonight, finally, after this long wait, he's going to finally be here to talk about, I really hope I don't butcher this. I should know this. The Richat Structure, just nod. Yeah, is that right? The Richat Structure, yay! Okay, and the African Atlantis. He's made 3 expeditions to the Richat Structure, also known as the Eye of Africa. I have researched this too because when I first found out about it, it really, really intrigued me. You know, as one of those people who loves ancient cultures and ancient civilizations. Anyway, he believes this natural formation may hold the key to unlocking the legend of Atlantis. His discoveries include evidence of ancient quarries, canals, shorelines, seawalls, and other potential intelligently created features. He even has evidence of a cataclysmic event, right? And today's going to share a lot of those findings. So we all know that this is a thing. I mean, you've heard me go on about it. We've had people come on and talk about it. And, you know, there's a lot of different, theories on a lot of different locations. We know that Edgar Cayce was so much into this. He channeled for a lot of people who allegedly had lives in Atlantis and pegged quite a few interesting things. So much so, in fact, he wrote a book about it. So go seek that out as well. So I see we're starting to fill in the chat room. I just have to say, anybody who normally goes to the Outer Realm Facebook page, again, apologies. Please just follow the link and head over to YouTube, which is where really a lot of the fun is anyway. Oh, hey, Wayne. Hello, hello. Hello, Heidi. Hello, Kathy. Oh, my goodness. Hello. Nice you guys are coming on in there. Z-Sun, hi. Hi, Sherry. Oh my God. I love seeing all of these, all of your familiar faces. Hello, Alan. How are you? So, anyway, without further ado, we're going to bring the man himself on board, Mr. David Stig Hansen. Hello. How are you? He's got to
Looking
get,
right
there
at
we
the
go.
camera.
Yeah,
Okay,
got
now
you.
you can hear me. Yeah, I always
Now,
have trouble right at the beginning with the StreamYard. When I'm live streaming, sometimes I have to check that volume or make sure my microphone's working. Hello, everybody, and it's great to address a new audience. I'm going to try to use my sexy voice. Sometimes I start to raise it up and get a little
right?
excited. And
Oh,
I,
here.
I had
Amelia
a
herself, so she's like, she's under the weather, and she's like, I can't believe I'm going to miss this show.
Don't
So,
worry, she's here in spirit and sounds like she's listening. I'm so excited to be here and talking to a new audience. And I understand a few people might not be. You told me many times that there's a lot of video, but I know maybe
yeah,
some people out there just listening. Is that still true?
there are. We
And I'm going to
actually,
try to.
because we're part of an FM station, we're the podcast
Hmm.
division of that. So we have a lot of international audio servers that go around the world, and we'll have a lot of audio archives. So it's very important that we get out what you want verbally, so those people can
Right.
take advantage of it.
I'm going to keep that in mind. But you got to,
Okay.
first of all, oh, yeah, and I forgot to show this. You were talking about what? I ran out of coffee. And so I had to pull this
Soldiers,
out. I had to pull this out of my
woo!
cupboard to show you. I got this.
Yay!
I was going to be drinking this tomorrow.
Go
So anyway,
Stig!
I'm not kissing anything, but
I
I
love
figured
it.
I'd grab that. I was like, please let it be Folgers. Please let it be Folgers. And
There it is. It was meant to
instant
be.
coffee. Yeah,
It
I
is.
started drinking my coffee black. I'm a YouTuber, and I listened to like that Dr. Gundry, and he's like,
Yes.
don't put milk or sugar in your coffee. So I threw the milk away. I'm not buying milk. I still got to buy butter. I'm going to
I
prove
know.
tonight how much weight I've gained over the last few years.
Some things you just can't let go. I understand. So,
But I have to be honest. And I did an interview with Jimmy Corsetti. He was on Joe Rogan today. He gave me a shout out on Joe Rogan, not today, but
woo!
Joe Rogan's
That's
heard my name.
okay.
Yeah, but he
Any on Joe Rogan is like pretty impressive.
right. One degree away from Elon Musk, who made
Right?
the weirdest. Yeah, he was smoking weed on Joe Rogan and making the weirdest
Oh,
grimace. And so
wow.
so one degree away. And by the way, Elon Musk is 1 degree away from the president now. So we're getting closer. We're getting closer.
Oh boy, that's a whole other show, isn't it?
It's a very I honestly, people say I just can't
I
handle all
know.
the politics. I lived in Taiwan for 20 years, and
Oh boy.
the worst thing
Yeah.
for me was when I was listening to my back home radio. I don't know if you know LA, but KFI my whole life.
I
KFI.
do. Yeah.
So I still listen to
Yeah.
KFI, but I was listening to KFI when it was Loman and Barkley. And I don't even know if you
Wow.
remember Loman and Barkley, but
I don't. That's maybe before my
they were
time.
there back when I was before I could even drive. I mean, way before I maybe was a kid, like 6, 7, 8 years old. And
Right.
let's not go there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I am ready to take you on a wild ride. To be honest, I
Let's
think
do
the
it.
problem it's going to be a problem because I want to make sure to relay my thoughts, but I'm going to show you 1,000 slides a minute, so I might go through slides really quick, but I'm going to try to relay that thought. And
Yes.
please call me out if I don't make my point clear.
I'll jump in. I always say when we have a guest on, and you've probably heard me say it because you've participated in the chat, that it's your show. Essentially, I
Thank
just
you.
want you to take it away because we have 2 hours to get out as much information as you can. It is just very important, though, for the audio listeners that we do, because they're not able to see these photos. So
Right.
pertinent.
And I don't
ones,
mind
we
sharing.
pick up stuff.
I don't
Yeah,
mind
go
sharing
ahead.
the link for this presentation so they can go
Yeah.
through it again if they want. Although there are a lot of links I'll show you. I do have a Facebook page where I put all my stuff, and I put the coordinates so you can click on it. Yeah. Okay. Oh, we're already hearing it. Now, by the way, Jimmy Corsetti did interview me, and that was the big accomplishment, because before I was in Taiwan, I was kind of stuck pre-COVID and during COVID.
Mhm.
And then when I finally, because of COVID, got out of Taiwan, that's when things started to change.
Mhm.
But back
That's
in the
another
day,
show.
everybody wanted
Yeah.
a little. We wanted recognition from Jimmy, and I'll bring Jimmy up later. But he did the Joe Rogan today. But when he interviewed me, but I didn't do a great job because I was all ADHD and not finishing sentences, and this is
Right.
one of my big problems. They did
That's
3
okay.
hours today. We're only doing 2 hours, right?
We're
So
only two. If it goes over,
yeah,
it's all right.
we can
We
go
can do
over.
that.
We can go over, but there's so many things that I want to show you, and it's
Well, we
impossible.
may just have to do a part two. So why don't we start? Where do you want to start? Let's
Well,
start with
okay.
this.
So here's what I'm
First
gonna do.
off,
I mean, yes.
okay. Well, I would say where I thought we would be a good place to start is people don't just wake up saying, I think I want to research Atlantis. You know, where did this drive and this need to learn about this incredible alleged myth start with you?
You know, it's not in the slide presentation, but when I was a young kid, my mother, who was very interested in all of this, she's actually, some people might know her name. I don't know how old our audience is, but she's been doing the UFO circuit for 20 years. And then she started to tell me when I was a young kid, oh, by the way, I have a previous life. I was in Atlantis. So when you're a kid and your mom tells you stuff like that, you don't want to
Yeah.
have anything to do with it. So I
Yeah, of
abandoned
course.
ship.
The
I was
mom thing.
over UFOs.
Yeah.
I was over
Right.
UFOs a long time ago, and I hope we don't have to talk about UFOs tonight.
No. This is
Yeah,
about Atlantis. Let's do that. Let's go from
yeah.
there.
So, but
Okay.
like
So
I said, I
you.
didn't want to know anything about Atlantis, so I literally had a blank mind, totally
Mhm.
ignorant until I was 30. And
Right.
how old am I
Wow.
now? I'm so close to 60.
Wow.
So
Wow.
yeah,
All
I'm
right.
57. I'm 57 this next month. So
Wow.
I'll show you in the slides a few pictures
Mhm.
about how far
Yeah.
back my exposure goes to alternative history. How do we label it? When
It
I
is.
was
I guess it is alternative history.
alternative, not just history, but alternative, yeah, history, because
It's an ancient civilization that has a lot of mystery surrounding it. Some people will call it a myth. Other people will just because it's like Lemuria, Mu. Like we don't know. But we're finding continents. We know that where continents they're coming up, technology, whatever we want to call it. We know things are surfacing. And we know that there may be a lot more to Atlantis, as you and I had kind of, went
what
over email about than people think. Maybe not just one place.
Jimmy didn't talk about the Richat much. He talked about it at the end of his interview today, and I was just
Right.
like, but there's a lot of things that I'm going to try to show you that Jimmy never talks about, and I think he
Okay.
doesn't want to lose his credibility. I'm
No,
not
of
going to
course.
say put a gun to my head. I'm not going to say this was Atlantis. I'm not that person, and I really think I do think that I can demonstrate there was a destroyed civilization there.
You know what? Let's do it. And let's see,
Yeah.
it was it the Atlantis civilization? Any way you look at
I
it.
think it was. I think it was like no
Yeah.
gun to my head. I think it was.
Yeah.
I think it was because there's a couple of main points. Plato. Okay, everybody knows by now that the Richat structure, the Eye of Africa, is 4 times bigger than the actual dimensions that Plato wrote, and
Yes.
so it's 4 times bigger. A big deal. But guess what? The proportions are almost perfect. I'll show you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Okay. Because a
the-
lot of people are also thinking it's in the Azores and they're leaning towards that. So I'm anxious to hear how you're going to piece this all together,
Well,
Stig.
okay, let me just say right now, and then later on, if you see the slide, because there's a slide for
Yeah.
that. There's a
Yeah.
slide for that. But later on, when you see the slide, I've already explained it.
Yeah.
Plato said that Atlantis was an island, yes, bigger than Libya and Asia combined. Well, my arch nemesis, David Miano.
Uh-oh.
I
We're
don't know
talking
if you
our
know who that guy is.
business.
I sometimes watch his videos. I unsubscribed, but sometimes I watch his videos. Today, or not today. He said his exact words were, by definition, anything that is bigger than Libya and Asia combined is not an island. So,
Right.
so there you go. And also, Plato made reference to islands in the open sea, diverse islands in the open sea. I'm not against the Azores being occupied by Atlanteans.
Mhm.
13,000 years ago. I have no problem with that. But there was no gold there. There were no elephants there. These are all things Plato wrote was in
But would it not maybe have been obviously pre-Ice Age? So there was a
oh,
lot. Well, what's underwater that we don't know about? I mean,
that's
things are
another good
surfacing
point.
all the time,
Graham
right?
Hancock
I mean,
says that. That's Graham Hancock right there.
yeah. I
They're
mean,
on
we've got
shelf.
Santorini. I've been to Santorini. I'll tell you, it's pretty compelling. But we have Bimini, right? We've got Peru, South America, Antarctica,
I'm going to
Lemuria.
show you some things in North America that's
See, right
mind
there.
blowing.
Yeah. Okay.
Mind
Take it
blowing
away.
stuff. But we'll try to. I'm going to give you a quick introduction.
Yep.
I forgot what I was going to say. The Azores,
Yes.
no gold, but I think that Doggerland probably was Atlantis. Now you said pre-Ice Age. That's what I wanted to say. Of course, it was pre-Ice Age because
Exactly.
according to okay, so you say Santorini, I get triggered because I have a lot of trolls that bug me on a daily basis, and they're
I've
pushing
been,
this.
but it doesn't
agenda.
fit all the bill. Yeah, it
Well,
doesn't
you
fit
know
all
the
the
funny
bill.
thing, there was the guy you just had. No, who was it? That wasn't you. Somebody just had him on. It was a book he got in Santorini about the Richat Structure. Who was that? Anyways,
Right.
and it kept kind of confusing me. And I was like, no, not Santorini. It's not an allegory because there's so many things that are real world now, and the difference in 900 months compared to years, 9,000 months or 9,000 years. To me personally, it just doesn't add up. And I think I have a lot of things to support everything beyond the Pillars of Hercules. And I went to the Pillars of Hercules in February. I was there and I went back to the Richat that third time. And it was, well, I can just say it was Randall Carlson that made me go back, haunted by his words. I'll show you the slide when he said, and I'll just sound like Randall Carlson for the rest of this. His exact words were, there were chert crops in that structure, the Richat structure being quarried by somebody. I was like, and I forgot that you're going to forget half of what I show you tonight. There's so much. So, anyways,
so let's start then.
I have a slide presentation, and
let's do it.
Keep me in control. Rein me in when I have to.
I will. Don't you worry.
I'll remember that.
I'll pry my way in there when I have to.
I'll try to remember that we have a radio audience that can't see the slides.
And a host.
The host can see the slides, can't you?
Well, I can see all of it. I can see it all. Yeah.
You are the never mind, omniscient one, aren't you? So one thing I can say about the slide here, you can't see it yet. Now you're hearing me and the Richat desktop. I'm ready to share my desktop with you. But one thing about this first slide is when you look at it, it looks like you're standing on the cliff looking over the Richat. But I recently, what's her name? Itchy Boots is her name. And I did a video. By the way, I found out how to put my link right there. So I really could use the subscriptions. I've been doing YouTube since 2008. And I have 12,000 subscribers after all this time. And all my friends are surpassing me. Like if you know Adapt 2030, he has his first video secret on my channel, and he went up. He skyrocketed. So I've been doing this. Actually, the Richat stuff. I started to try to transition from my life in Taiwan videos to the Richat stuff, and then that's when that Jimmy video came out, and that's when I kind of changed over to. Well, first of all, I have been looking at the Richat structure since 2008. The slide I have since 2009, but that was only when I did a shout out on Facebook saying, I'm going to go here someday. Well, I fulfilled it. I did it. And so I'm proud of that. But at the same time, I think you can see a lot more from Google Earth. And I am a Google Earther. I've been doing Google Earth for like 15, according to that slide, 15 years. And I see more from Google Earth. When I first went to the Richat the first time, and I know a lot of people probably wonder how I got there and what the trip is like, and I promise I can cover that. I do welcome more questions.
Yeah. Well, we're going to see what comes up in the chat room. Let's get started with the slideshow. And
sure. Well, while you're pulling that up, I'll just let you know that after my first trip, I went home thinking, nah, this wasn't Atlantis. But honestly, those words kept haunting me. Those chert outcrops in the structure
Right.
being quarried by somebody hundreds
Yeah.
and thousands of years ago, he said. And by the way, he may have deleted that video. There's a couple of videos that are not there anymore on Randall Carlson's channel. But I took a clip of it just to prove that, because, you know, I don't want anybody like saying, oh, I actually had people say you're a liar. And I said, well,
you know what?
look at this
Here's
link.
here's what I say, Stig. That
Yes.
you have control. You can manage the whole slideshow
Okay.
from your end. I'll bring it up. You bring it up when you're ready, and let's just explore the photos. Just explain what it is. Let people just make the choice for themselves based on your presentation and your research. What it is you want to
No,
talk
there's
about.
no choice to be made. They must accept it. You know,
Guys.
it sounds like you're trolling me. Sounds like you're trolling me or something. You know,
No.
that's the thing. People
No,
come at me on the YouTube. No, I'm just joking. You know, I'm kidding,
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
You have
no.
to-
Like people have to come to their own determination. But a lot of it is also perception. We don't all see things the same way, but it gives them a good opportunity to go
Sure.
visit your page,
Sure.
to go visit your YouTube, look at your different videos, and to do research themselves as well. And you may just find yourself getting some emails saying, "Okay,
Oh,
I found this," or remember, you guys can in the show write-up, Stig's email is in there. If you have questions, you can go in and email him with those
you
questions.
can contact me, no problem. You can get to
there
me.
we go. Okay, let's get
You
started.
can get to me many ways. I can get triggered in many ways, but
Yeah, they're all in there. So let's
yeah. So
All
I'll
right.
definitely show you several things. You got the do you see my desktop? I've been there it is.
Yeah, so you can you're the one in charge because it's on your desktop. So
it is.
Yeah.
Trust me, there's
Okay.
nothing bad. It's all boring stuff here.
That's
on my
all right.
desktop.
That's all right.
If
So this is
anything's
an
split-
overhead, which looks pretty amazing.
It's more of a that's a picture taken from Google Earth, but using the 3D function, which I'll try to show you later for something I found in South Africa. I do want to give you a quick look at South Africa before I get deep into the Richat, because honestly, most of what I say, most of the things that come out of my mouth, even the pre-South Africa me would think I'm crazy. But the ridges I've found in the Richat and outside all over Africa, and all over in North America, especially around the Continental Divide. I'll show that. But what I want to say about this shot is it looks like someone's standing on the cliff outside the Richat structure. And for those of you who, I mean, some people might not even know what it looks like because like I said, it's the radio. Some people may have never seen this. The Richat structure is the cornea of the eye of Africa. And the white of the eye is actually the darker Adrar Plateau. And the Richat is a bowl, a basin. It's missing the 800 feet down. So when people say it's a volcanic dome, well, they also say it's collapsed. First of all, I don't even believe that. But the point with this slide is there's no way somebody could stand on the cliff and see that. And check out my video with Izzy Boots. She's a motorcycle off-roader, like she goes everywhere. She's European. Amazing drone shot she went straight up, and it really took several hundred feet before you could even see that you were in something like this. So when people think, there was some rumors that spies from Egypt went to Mauritania, and they stood there and saw it and wrote all this down. No, I believe the survivors of Atlantis were already in Egypt when the cataclysm happened. They had to have been. I mean, according to Plato, they had sway. So when the cataclysm happened, they were already there. They didn't have to run for their lives and run to Egypt. Let's go. Let me move to some more slides. I'm going to go through these rather quickly, I think. That's what I look like. I'm having a bad hair day, so I kept the hat.
Okay.
I'm wearing the same outfit just to support myself. Thanks for subscribing. Even in 1970,
I subscribed.
Thank you. Even in 1970, I was into this stuff. This is the Temple of Quetzalcoatl. I was probably 2. I wasn't supposed to be in there. But actually, it was Brian Forrester who told me which temple this was, because I had no idea. I I lived in Guatemala in 1986, right after I graduated high school. And then I went and joined the army. Now, why am I talking about this? Because I learned Chinese and I moved to Taiwan for 20 years. And little did I know I was in 100 miles from Yonaguni at that time. That's Taipei.
Wow.
But
Yes.
I had some poor times. I was really destitute financially. And I really had the best time. I volunteered for a dog sanctuary, cat sanctuary up in Taiwan. And I was remodeling a house. So I got to sleep there. And so what did I do for the audio was Graham Hancock's audiobooks. And I was up there and I really had no money. And he said in the book Underworld, he went to these ruins down in southern Taipei, Dulan. There's a Beinan site and there's the Dulan Wall, Dulan. There's a lot. Well, they're right in here. I guess we can say the pregnant rock that has two nubs.
Yes.
And then there's this thing, which is more of a sarcophagus thing. I think it was for water. And then there's this thing which has two alignment holes. Now that broke the two holes. Unfortunately, part of it's broken off now. But I did go there right away. And I was so lucky. A wealthy friend of mine let me have the keys to his house and the keys to his van. And it was a 4x van. So I drove everywhere down there.
That works.
And it's on my channel. It's on my channel. It's about like.
Right.
Since,
well, you guys have to go into Stig's channel and just poke around and find some stuff.
Yeah, don't go away yet. And by the way, Graham and I are good. Next, Cambodia, 1987. This is before I really had an understanding. I went the first time right when I went to Taiwan. And that was the thing I wanted to say. Taiwan allowed me to visit 10 countries in Asia and doing visa runs. And I went to Cambodia not just once, but twice. There's some amazing, not just polygonal stonework, right? But also three-dimensional in Cambodia. And here's the problem. When I went, I was still ignorant to all of this. I had no clue. I was still just wandering around. And I did it. Okay, I should have put this in the presentation, but on my, let me just go out of here and go to my Twitter. One thing about that, let me just go to my profile in my Twitter, or it's now called x.com. It's Stig Up. I should probably change that, but I do want to go and show you this, that I took this picture from somebody else. But yeah, here, this is the one thing that I did get from those trips to Angkor Wat, were these balustades. What's the word? I wrote it down right here. Balusters in the windows of Angkor Wat. That's not wood, that's stone. So if you know about lathing, wood.
Yes, I do. Yes.
Well, that's not
very
wood.
Detailed. No, that's very detailed.
You can see
some people believe that these ancient civilizations, had access. They believe this is lasers, which I'm sort of like, well, that's interesting, considering that there wouldn't be such a thing then, to our knowledge.
Well, and that's a question. Was it done with lasers? I mean, there's a few things about this that it could have been done later. Nothing's 100%. Yeah. I don't know how they attached it to here. It looks like cement at the bottom. I guess I can enlarge that for you. But and then you do see these up-down lines, and maybe they didn't even lathe it. Maybe they literally carved it.
Yeah, possibly. Sure.
How old is Angkor Wat? It's supposed to be about 1200 or 1200 AD. They say. I don't believe that for a second.
Yeah, it's quite old. It's quite old.
Yeah, I think it's older.
It's got some amazing stuff there. Absolutely.
Okay, where was I? So anyways, I was still ignorant, but then when I left and I finally started doing Google Earthing, I was still ignorant. I was ignorant about the Richat structure until, oh, by the way, this is just some close-ups, until Jimmy, and I'll show you the slides later, but again, why I kind of messed up my slides here, but the thing I'm trying to say is that, yeah, I'm good with Randall, although he's Team Azores.
He's Team Azores. Oh,
yeah,
boy.
He's Team Azores, or basically Team Not Richat. And I heard that Jimmy Corsetti and Dan the Debunker Joe Rogan interview today. Even Joe Rogan said, "I just don't understand Randall." And I was like, cool, maybe. I love Randall. I'm not at war with him, but he definitely is not. I wish I could zoom in on this, but if you see from this is probably one of the best and I think it's LiDAR. And if any of your audience out there has anything to do with satellites and LiDAR and how to scan stuff, please hook me up. When I saw this, and I'll show you where it came from a conspiracy of the cartographer's website. Somehow he got this, but I've been following this line over here underneath the second Simsiat. They call it a dome. I don't think it's a structure. But that line, I've been looking at that line for 8 years now. And now I realize that it actually went across the Wadan River, maybe a bridge or a dam. Earlier, I thought it was a dam for damming, but now maybe it was just a road. I mean, especially down here, you can see it very clearly. It goes off and maybe went into the structure. We can talk more about this later. I'm going to go. Here's that image.
At your pace. Yeah.
Okay. Can I be wrong sometimes?
Of course.
So I was kind of incorrect in my earlier videos about Plato and his. I used to think Plato said, I saw Solon's diaries and I still have them in my possession. It was that same David Miano video that I was watching where I realized, you know what? I am wrong about that. It was a dialogue. It was Critias that said, I claimed I still have these Solon writings in my hand, and I studied them when I was a young child. But the thing that I'd really want to say is that what I really believe that Plato is not lying. It's not an allegory about Santorini. It's a real story about a place that has concentric circles, and the only place on Earth that's actually close is the Richat Structure. Mike Parker, who's very into, he's writing a book right now, and he shared this slide with me. He gave me this and shows these are the proportions. So the Richat Structure, remember, okay, I think there was a big cataclysm there that took away. It's the gums of the previously had teeth. So the teeth of Atlantis are no longer there. They were blown away. And I'll show you what I think did it later. I'll give you a quick hint. But who's this guy?
I don't know, but I love him on the show.
It's Robert Schock. I used to be afraid of him. But I saw him just a few weeks ago at the CPAC 2024. I was lucky enough to go, and I used to think he was scary.
Brilliant man.
Yeah, and by the way, everybody says he changed his mind. He didn't change his mind about the Sphinx. He even thinks it could be older. When he spoke at CPAC, he said that Göbekli Tepe has now rewritten the history. I'm going to show you something that's rewritten it even older, but Göbekli Tepe has blown the narrative out of the water.
Yes.
And
they just found one that was older, by the way. Very close by.
Oh, yeah. Another Tepe in Turkey.
Yes.
Karahan?
Yeah.
Is it Karahan Tepe? You know, the problem with that location is too many statues of naked dudes grabbing themselves. It's just too embarrassing.
A lot of that's almost like the Roman thing.
I have
other ancient texts.
I have a book right here from Hugh Newman. Hugh Newman wrote a book on giants, and I met him at the same thing. And he did a presentation on those tepes in Turkey.
Yes.
And he basically said, you know, there's just phallic symbols everywhere.
Well, there's also stuff underground now. They've just planted a bunch of trees over it.
Right. And Jimmy brought that up. I saw that too, but Jimmy brought it up.
Don't even get me started on that. I got hostile about it.
Yeah, right. It's weird and stupid. And let's not even focus on the toxicity of it all.
Yeah.
I better go faster. But and another thing is he did that presentation on, he believes that the ice sheets were melted by CMEs. Okay. He did a very long presentation on it. And I took a lot of photos, but not time to try to share all that. But so he's got a very open mind about but I'm more of an impact person, and the reason why I put this slide up is these are the Carolina Bays, possibly the creation of the Great Lakes. And that's why I think that during the same time, if you don't know what the Carolina Bays are, you have to look it up. I wish I had more slides here. But my point is that there's a possibility something hit Africa too. Most of the stuff that created the Carolina Bays was probably ejecta, and the stuff that hit the Great Lakes was the impact. However, You can't see this stuff from the ground at all.
Right.
I saw this in California just a few days after I saw Robert Schoch, and I went there with I Am Kairos channel. He showed me this. He was kind enough, and also this. Now it's not as old as Atlantis, in my opinion, but it's this Trivergence wall, and it's like older than the United States. They say the Chinese did it after they stopped building railroads, but these I call them the California mystery walls. They're all over California, Oregon. I heard even Seattle. CF Apps, Chuck, who I didn't watch a lot. I'm trying to go back and watch his video. He passed away. He was showing some of this stuff. That's the first time I ever saw this. But then I Am Kairos channel took me there. And so that was, and even this mountain, it looks almost regular, but it's got some terracing that's very down here, and even right there. There's a lot of terracing here. So I Am Kairos calls that a pyramid. I think that it's more about ancient mining. I just went to these Devil's Slides. I heard about Devil's Slide, Utah. I accidentally went to Devil's Slide, Montana when I visited Stage Wall. There's
impressive.
Yeah, but if you look in there, it's almost a perfect little line in there. I just don't, and the rest of it's uplifted strata of the earth. I do think so. I do believe that strata of the earth got uplifted, but I don't think those walls have anything to do with it. Montana either. And I was there. Check out my videos. Here's Utah, and if you notice, there's a big mine across the street from it. Okay, usually cement. I think that I found a lot of things on the Continental Divide here up in. I know this is these ridges. Now, when I show you the South Africa stuff, this is a ridge coming not just down from Radial Mountain in Colorado, but around. It curves around. When I drove through, I've been to all these places, and when I drove through there, I saw the sign for the Continental Divide, but it didn't yet click on me. And then Colorado, that's not on the Continental Divide, but they definitely mountains that are, this is called Spanish Peaks, Colorado, up on the, and if you look closely at the way these so-called volcanic dikes, that's where I'm afraid to tell Robert Schoch about this. I got his email address, and I do need to send him a thank you email. His wife wrote a book, and I bought her book, and I met her too. They're great. And, but stuff like this, I am afraid to talk to him about because I don't want him to stop talking to me. The fact that on one side, look at this over here on the right-hand side, this stops before the ridge. It curves up and meets the ridge. So it's a junction between two volcanic dikes. The one below it is actually, I think, a restart. You can see how the material starts and stops and starts and stops. Now you think I'm crazy. On the other side, it's diametrically opposed, the same deal. So the ridge comes up in junctions and stops. That's not how volcanic dikes work, in my opinion. So
you don't see a lot of that looking like natural formations. I mean, I could be wrong. I'm not an expert, but that's quite interesting.
Shiprock has the same ridges. I found one that's 13.5 miles long near Shiprock. I'm going to visit someday. But Pie Town, I almost died climbing it. It's not just a small ridge. It's these, I can't zoom in, but if you can see the lines there, parallel ridges, not perfectly straight, but 12 miles long. They originate in a mountain. They seem to control water, and they even start and stop. But when you zoom in, I can zoom in and show you how incredibly unnatural they look. All these volcanic dikes are, that one too, that's south of Spanish Peaks. It's just incredible. It looks like it was done in layers. That's why I added that in there.
And that's not erosion, right? Because some people will tell you that's erosion.
No, okay, so if you want, but now then you go over to Utah, and they don't say, oh, those are volcanic dikes.
Right.
Well, that's salt.
Yeah.
So they give it different explanations, different places. Now, they do say it's erosion for a volcanic dike. By the way, when you use the term volcanic dike in your YouTube videos, you do get blocked in your Google searches as well. It's not.
Great. So do I have to put the show in private mode when we're done?
No, you don't have to. The next slide will prove that. So the point I'm trying to make, though, is there's 3 or 4 events. First, the bedrock cracks. Then, okay, now how long is a crack? how wide is a volcano?
Mm-hmm.
4 miles wide at the caldera point, if I'm using the right word, or the base. Mount St. Helens, I think, is like almost 40 miles wide. But then we've got these ridges coming from mountains, so-called magma, that fill these cracks, and then they harden, and then they the erosion happens around them, and they get exposed. And I had one picture I was going to grab, and I didn't grab it, that shows this big, huge dike on top of a mountain. But it's like, wait a minute, how does that natural-looking mountain erode down to that point and leave this big thing? Again, here, the same story. And you can literally see the segments in this. I'm sorry, Sage Wall is kind of small when it comes to this, but I think there were the similar ways. This is the top of the rock at Sage Wall. Do you see that nub right there, and how flat the top is? Let's assume that there was another rock on top that fell off. How would it have a nub and how would it be flat? I just don't see erosion happening this way. By the way, Sage Wall was introduced to me by Wandering Wolf, Michael Collins. He just did an interview with Graham Hancock. He got this other wall down here. It's called the Keweenaw Wall in Michigan. So you might want to check out Wandering Wolf. And that really looks like bricks to me, by the way. By the way, Sage Wall is down there, but up here, there's these, we call them circular dikes, and they have ridges coming from them. I use this topographical software called, in fact, it's right here waiting. This is those two down in Pie Town. And I told you I almost killed myself because when I climbed it, I didn't realize how tall it was going to be, and I almost gave myself a heart attack. But do you see these? Anyways, I know we don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to keep going about these ridges, and we're going to get to the Richat. But all these circular dikes are on private property, and some of them have eroded a lot older than the others. And to me, I just feel like maybe they were some type of an ancient mining overburdened by giants. I don't want to say humans did this, but now people are tuning out. This guy is crazy.
Nah, I don't think so. It's all right.
Jimmy Corsetti in 2018 did a video, and he mentioned this. I can't remember if I already kind of knew about the Younger Dryas boundary, but if you notice, Mauritania is not inside, and all those the Carolina Bays. I'm not really sure what all these red dots are, but the Carolina Bays from the Great Lakes, something happened there. Something melted. That's why I think it was an impact. But you don't see anything here. So I'm going to be honest. Jimmy, in 2018, pointed this out. He pointed out the Herodotus connection, that there's an Atlantis. There's an Atlas Mountain in Herodotus histories. But full disclosure, those stories were about the Persian Wars, about 600 years before he passed away. So I'm maybe during his lifetime. I think he was a kid when the Persian Wars finished. So this is not Ice Age. And so but there's one thing, and I'm going to point it out in another slide. I thought it was the next one. You don't just have the Atlantis tribe, which is next to the Atlas Mountains. You also have the Atarantis tribe, which there is a city of Atar right next to the Adrar Plateau, but that's on the other side. So, and Jimmy also pointed out the castle, and this just blew my mind. My mind was blown because when I first saw this thing, I thought this was pre-Ice Age architecture. And then I went there, and it was just a pile of rocks. Right. Jimmy doesn't really talk about it anymore, but it was basically for military training for infantry. And I went there on Valentine's Day. But if a lot of people come to me, they still think this stuff is super old. And I just really want to reiterate, this stuff was probably built in the 1800s, late 1800s. People say, oh, the Foreign Legion. Well, not just foreigners, but anybody in the French military, because the French were in charge of Mauritania during that time. But they weren't, we're talking about in the 1800s, right when mercantilism started and the colonization of Africa. So even though that was my first stop, and I was so happy to have gotten those, but then, and I went and did a video, got the castle, and two other people went before me, Josh Sigerson and another gentleman named Graham Langdon, and he's got some great stuff to show. I'll show you later. But that neither of them went to the castle. And I'm like, oh my God, you didn't go. I was still in Taiwan. I was still stuck. And like I said, I came home from Taiwan in 2021, and I went here January of 2022. That was my first stop. Anyways, and then I went there my third time. Now, this LiDAR photo I showed you before shows these structures so much more clearly, including these agricultural ridges. But yeah, like you said, I believe I call this the Giant's Quarry. This is my next visit. I just can't get there. I've been trying. But that guy, Graham Langdon, he went back a second time, and he went up near that Giant's Quarry, and he found these hand axe heads.
Wow.
He met a nomad that showed him this field of these, and then they're clearly altered by maybe probably human. And I believe there were many different types, but the photo I'm showing, if you watch that video, he shows it's definitely evidence of a prehistoric city found in the Richat Structure. Now, he doesn't necessarily embrace the Atlantis stuff,
but he knows there was an ancient civilization there for sure.
We have a lot of, okay, so these things, I don't consider that terribly advanced technology. But what I do believe is what I'm going to show you, that Giant's Quarry, I believe that there were several different projects going on, and those were found right nearby this. And there were literally hundreds of thousands of them just laying out in the sand. And you can tell they're like arrowheads. And another thing that really I can talk about is I found a canal going through the Adrar. I call that the lower Adrar. In this picture, you see the Richat, and then the shape of the Adrar Plateau makes the eye shape. But over on, and some people compare it to the Osiris eye. The lower Adrar kind of has that flare that kind of looks like the Egyptian eyes. Not Osiris. Sorry, there's two of them. The eye of, I'm brain farting right now. Anyways,
the Sahara. Yeah.
No, the gods of Egypt. The eye.
Oh,
the eye of Osiris.
The eye of Ra.
Ra is one of them, and the other one is Osiris, I believe.
Osiris.
Anyways, Osiris. Yeah. Thank you. I was, like I said. But in the lower Adrar, it's just as high. That brown area around the cornea, which is the Richat Structure, that's 2,000 feet above sea level. The Richat Structure is only about 1,200 feet above sea level. So some people think, oh, it's a volcano. Well, what happened to that disc of 800 foot thick by 45 kilometers wide material, that content? Live on a live stream, I discovered this canal, and I can show you more about that later. But to me, that's when I woke back up about it possibly being Atlantis and definitely being an ancient civilization, because I'm worried we might not have a lot of time. But I found this canal, and it's 50 miles long. And it's not perfectly all 100% canal, but I think it's very convincing that it's heading right towards the mouth. Okay, now if you can look at this picture, you're going to know about how I think the cataclysm destroyed it. But I'm going to talk about that later. Right now, I'm going to talk about South Africa, because a friend, we haven't met in person, but a fellow Google Earther named Anthony Tunstall from Zero Control, and YouTube's been horrible to me, but YouTube's also been horrible to him. He's got a great collection of Google Earth collection. He told me to go to South Africa. Now, this is the structure that I added to the presentation just today. 500,000 years old. It had to. It's wooden.
Absolutely.
It had to have been waterlogged. Apparently, I'm just learning. They found it in 2019, but the Smithsonian Magazine recognized it and published it in just last year. Now, I just heard about this, but this structure, I did an AI search that said, what's the oldest wooden structure? And this was the only one that was really a building. The rest were just pieces of wood. And I guess it got waterlogged, but it's old. And this is my mound. I found it. It's in South Africa. That's Stig's mound. These ridges are all over down there. And what looks like cart ruts, but they're even wider. They're 40 feet wide, those cart ruts. This image is actually part of Lesotho, not Lesotho, but Lesotho. And it's got these haulage roads all over it, these ridges. So that's what made me realize that some of the stuff I've seen elsewhere is not necessarily natural. Here I showed two plateaus. and you've got definitely a 90-degree, or this is not east-west, but you can see at the compass down below they're diametrically opposed. I believe that these were quarried away. They were taking material away, and they were driving through. Look how the road, I believe it's a road, which is about 40. This one down here, so it's 100 meters. So the road is up here is about 40 meters wide, and then it goes through. You can see it go through, but you also see a little shortcut. And nearby, I'm going to show you where there's another plateau with the same 90-degree perpendicular.
It's very identical. Like, it looks very, very similar.
Yeah, and that's another 100 meters. So up here, the road is about 30 meters wide. I mean, and I believe they had like dump trucks and stuff, or something was going on, because you can see something. I mean, sometimes it looks like but then when sorry, see, now I'm getting all excited.
That's okay. That's okay.
But when it goes into the shortcut mode, it gets skinnier, and it's only about 20 meters wide. And it's the same thing down here. Up here, it's nice and thick, but down below, the little shortcut guy. And by the way, I saw one more thing. That little nook right there is very identical to that little nook right over there too.
Yes.
Something I believe created that. That's the structure here. One of them is up here. That's one of those I call it an ancient intersection, but this is part of a bigger structure, and I can show you that later. I want to get through South Africa, but there's so many things down there. I call that Stig's Mound, because Google Earth, those are how that little white speck is a house. I want to show that to you, and there's about 5 of these things. There's also channels that go up into the mountains. And look at these 90-degree angled mountains here. There's 2 of them. That's all. And then you get these things, and I'm going to show you where these all are, but these some type of terraforming was going on here. And it's part of a longer road. It's just here they interact with each other. There's all this white slurry stuff. I think this was ancient mining. They were creating slurry and processing the slurry on these roads. This is really amazing. It's a long channel, but then it seems to have like this pit, and right next to it's this mound. Maybe the stuff was left there to be processed. I don't know. The triangles here, I'll show you where that is. And then what looks to me like ancient mining compared to modern day mining. So we're going to get into that. I'm just going to show you real quick because I have it ready for you. I hope it doesn't freeze everything. This is Google Earth Pro. And one more thing I'll bring up is Google Earth. We're really challenging my bandwidth. Google Earth domain. And I'll show you Google Earth Pro in a minute. But first, since we're going in here, let's just zoom out and go straight down to South Africa and just show you how to get there if you want to go there yourself someday. I heard it's kind of dangerous, but then people say the Mauritania is dangerous, and I think they're crazy. So when you zoom in here, you don't have to turn on the borders to see the border of Lesotho. For some reason, that border is a different color from the rest of South Africa. Lesotho is a landlocked country, and down here there's this little notch, and you get that channel I just showed you, and you can take it out. You see lines, they're definitely degraded. I'm not saying they're perfectly straight. And then cut back. Let me get rid of that. Cut back and go this way on this line. And that's when you can zoom in and get to my mound, which is on this line, by the way. It's this ancient road or line. And you can really see this in Google Earth. Zoom right in there and see the structure in South Africa. I mean, I personally think it's not necessarily aiming north, but to me, that's just the epitome of proof that this ancient culture created this, and we're probably worshiping that. I don't know what they were doing with it, but so so I collected everything. So I'm just going to show you that was called Mohale's Hook. Can definitely make this smaller. That's Mohale's Hook, and let me get rid of that. No, Stig's Mound. I took you there already. That's up here. There's something I call the Star of Adam. Those are these little houses right there, right? You can see the houses. Like, there's no way a human probably did that. Now we're talking about the Anunnaki story, right? That they were probably mining stuff. I call this the Star of Adam because there's like 5 corners and it almost looks like a star in here. That's like a little stubby corner. And also when I see lines like this, I really do believe that they were machining and working the land. And I think that I found everything I'm showing you here in the Richat. This big plateau, I call that the siren. It's got these lines in it. And what I believe is when you see these roads up against a cliff, they were mining the material and taking it away at the cliff. I'm just going to go through here real quick. These things, I mean, to me, honestly, I don't see how anybody can think that's natural. You see this road come down here, and you see what looks like these enclaves, these amphitheaters of material have been removed, but then you've got the road going right through it. And that's just part of it. You've got that plateau, and then over here you've got another little corner, and you've got these roads. I call them gutters, like cart ruts, like a rut, but gigantic. They're not skinny. And don't get tricked by lines like that. That's just a modern day fence. I showed you this Kolonyama. Yeah. So if anybody wants this file and they want to go through all this, if you can't find it, go to my videos. I've got it. Kolonyama, this structure. It also has very interesting, like a isosceles triangle embedded into it. And like I said, that's a house over there. So when you got this big triangle that's almost perfectly isosceles, is that correct? Then it's obviously not done by the contractor that did these homes. And it goes down. No. You've got this ancient pit that also has been breached, you know. Okay. I just want to keep moving here because this is about African Atlantis. This is pre-Atlantis. There's my shortcut that I showed you. It's actually part of something bigger. That's one of the shortcuts. The other one was on that Kolonyama I just showed you. So anyways, I'm going to lots of intersections. I'm just going to bust through a bunch of ancient intersections really quick. Actually, I think that we could probably cut it short. But these plateaus, I mean, were they mined away? Sometimes I believe that this is a secondary. You see all this white stuff. I kind of think that's the slurry, just like the Malta. I don't know about those cart ruts, but they look like it's gone through slurry too. I call that the fat intersection because it's got the lines, but it's got that big chunk. So many. I'm going to try to avoid clicking. I almost wish it would go in faster for you. I like that.
No. It doesn't need to go faster. This is okay. We're all right.
Okay, wait a minute. Let me.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Keep in. Okay, I guess I'm gonna have to use my mouse. I was trying to use my.
You waited a long time for this interview. I want you to be able to.
Okay, well, let's. I'm worried we're gonna have to go over 2 hours a little bit. It's already 7:07.
Yeah.
So I mean, I found these bizarre these ridges, and I showed you the map. There's literally hundreds of miles of these. And you see how it gutters out? And that's a modern day that's a road for a dirt road for a car right there. So that shows you the difference between, I don't know why it's a gutter there instead of a road anymore. I'm not actually trying to see how the line just keeps going. It goes for like 40 kilometers, and you can find other ones as well going through this bedrock. There's a lot of them. I have to thank Anthony of Zero Control for making me look, and a lot of this stuff I found myself. This is that little cluster of these terraformed ridges and mountains over here. There's a good one. It's a little triangle, perfectly natural, right? That's how nature works this way, right? I don't know why it's a triangle. I have no idea. Okay, that's it. And then so many mysterious little features. And Stefan Milo and Milo Rossi did a video, and I was so triggered by that. There's my little slurry. Now, when you look at that thing, how did that little bit of white rock get in there and be 90-degree angled on this corner, 90-degree angled? Looks like roads going through. I think it was ancient mining. Oh yeah, and I'll stop there for a second. This is something very interesting. If you know about Graham Hancock's America before, he wrote about something called Terra Preta. I think this might have something to do with it. I don't know what these lines are. This line is actually north-south, isn't it? No, I'm wrong. That's something else. But that darkness there, when you get on the ground, you can't see it. But I really feel like it's some type of you can follow this weird dark line. And then when you get to different scans, it disappears because the season grew grass on it, I guess. But why is the Earth such a different color like that? And it's part of this whole matrix. Okay, I'm almost done talking about South Africa because I really think that there's just a lot of reasons why I can't unsee it. So many lines, so many ridges. It just makes me realize something. I believe this was older than Atlantis. By the way,
well, if you're going back to Anunnaki time, for example, or the
Right.
ancient Sumerians, absolutely.
look at this. This is what I call one of the channels. It goes to the mountain, but it's got this perfect 90-degree angle going through it. And then when you follow that line up, it takes you to this. I'm just going to go the north channel right here. It takes you to this other channel. The line sometimes disappears, and these lines are not perfectly parallel like that other one was, but I just feel like there was some reason they had a two-way street going to the mountains there. I am going to get rid of that. I'm going to go back to the presentation, talk about Plato a little bit.
Okay.
How are we doing with questions from the audience?
Well, there's been a lot of comments up there. People are very attentive. Dolly basically has just said, South Africa was covered in glaciers at one time, also 30 meters high in water. So yes, it would definitely be older. And of course, like I said, there's all these comments up here. Keep up the good work. Right?
King. Wait a minute. If you're not the king, I'm the king, right? You get the money. You're the king.
I know, right? No, that's yours.
You can be the king.
That's yours. No, this is yours. I'm putting this up. This is on your channel.
Oh, really?
Yes.
That's awesome. Thank you. I don't get a lot of. How do you do that? Okay, I actually don't know how to do that. Okay, I made this timeline to kind of show where Solon was and where Plato was,
right.
And the lineage there would be Solon to Dropidas, his friend, and then Dropidas gave Critias the elder the maybe they were related, and then there was the middle guy because Critias the elder is the grandfather of Critias the younger, and Plato knew Critias the younger. And I guess he knew him when he was. Critias the younger was older than him. So when we talk about this, like I said, I realized this dialogue Plato wrote was coming from Critias the younger. Critias, and in the dialogue, he claimed to have the writings of Solon in his possession. So it's not a telephone game. Well, I mean, the telephone game is from the Egyptian temple of Sais to Solon, maybe. But that's because they were interpreting hieroglyphs on the temple and telling him. And by the way, the Piri Reis map also shows the Paleo-Taman Rasset. If you don't know what that is, a very important river that's right there. This mountain is probably the Adrar Plateau. And yes, there's a little dog and a goose between this circular structure here, but what the heck is that circular structure? And these black lines are rivers, right? Could that be the Richat Structure? And if so, what's that in the middle? Is that a temple? Is that a guy's face?
Yes.
This is the Piri Reis. This is a Piri Reis map. Looks like a little face, but it's probably a little castle. We're talking about what Plato wrote. Plato said that there was an impassable barrier of mud. You're not going to get that in the middle of the Atlantic.
Well, remember, though, you're going back pre-Ice Age. Maybe.
Well, I'll show you the line I believe was the ancient shore. I believe we can see it in Google Earth. I could be wrong, but let's just say that the chances that there's a barrier of mud keeping you from getting to an island, I think I wouldn't have described it like that, but something inland, yes, I would describe it like that.
Right.
Also, Plato mentioned that there were islands in the open sea. This is to combat the Azores argument. By the way, this word diverse, I thought it was said one version I had didn't have the E, so I thought it was divers, people diving. I'm like, yeah, those divers, they live out on islands. No, various islands in the open sea were referred to by Plato. So in contrast to an island that's bigger than Libya and Asia combined. Now the Taman Rasset Paleo River went right there, that purple line. Just because we have the slide up, I can tell you that Plato mentioned the Pillars of Hercules. I went there. There are two mountains. So when people talk about columns, maybe, but I believe the mountains were there first. I can get into that, but check my channel about how Hercules broke through and let the waters of the Atlantic pour into the Mediterranean. Okay, I don't know. That's before all this.
Yes.
So the pillars, he said, they're beyond the Pillars of Hercules. He said that. I believe that means that it's through here. He also mentions Cadiz. I went to the Cadiz. Unfortunately, got a little sick and I had to leave. And it's a beautiful city. I'm going back for sure. But it was in Plato wrote that the twin of Atlas received the extremity of the island towards the Pillars of Hercules. So this, in my opinion, was the island. And he said across from, facing the region of Gades. Gades, in the translation say Gades. Gadieris was the name of the twin. So I was really confused. Did he get Spain or did he get Morocco? I'm still confused, but I believe he got Morocco. So we're putting Atlantis in Morocco. Okay. And by the way, like I said earlier, I do believe that Atlantis was probably in the Azores and in Doggerland. Do we know where Doggerland is or was? It was right to the east of England, to the west of Denmark. And I believe that was it. So this part was mentioned by Plato. He puts a real world city in the story. And then he doesn't really mention the Atlas Mountains, but King Atlas was the name. And the Atlas Range is right there, south of there in Morocco. I went there, didn't have a lot of success touring it in one day. Like I said, I got a little sick and I left Morocco kind of sick and I went back to Cadiz. And even though it was so beautiful, I was getting sicker and I went back to Madrid and then I got well again. So after that, I went back to Mauritania. Herodotus Histories mentions the Atlas Mountains, and I already mentioned Attar right next to it. There's also a study by Michael Hubner, who passed away. He was a German researcher he did a masking of global indication layers from the Plato story, and it pointed right south of the Atlas Mountains in the Su-Masa Basin. So according to what Plato wrote, this is the most likely place for Atlantis. Talking about mountains, where the mountains were, where the oceans were, using his language to focus in on one spot. And look at that little crescent right there is what you get. So I think that's quite significant if you talk about what Plato wrote. Now, the history of Mauritania also had the King Atlas. King Atlas of Mauritania, he was definitely not the same King Atlas from pre-Ice Age, unless that word-of-mouth story went on forever for 12,800 years or whatever. But the King Atlas of Mauritania, he's famous for creating the celestial globe. That's the stars. The Atlas. He invented it. And he was the king of Mauritania, and also navigational techniques. So we're seeing now that the Taman Reset. Okay, I'm going on. So King Atlas.
That's okay. Yes.
King Atlas of Mauritania was like when you talk to Mauritanians, they talk about their knowledge of this ancient king that was the Mauritanian king. So it's like, wait a minute, was he a descendant? His name's Atlas. I mean, was he like not a descendant of the original? And by the way, Plato created Plato created the concentric circles, the circular ditch. And I'm sorry, did I say Plato? I meant to say Poseidon. Poseidon created the circular ditch. Was that an allegory for a natural event, or was that really a man who dated Cleito, the mother? It's all, it's myth. And like I said, gun to my head, I'll probably say Atlantis was in the Azores. Okay, but the Taman Reset, people say if it was an island, there was nothing there where there was no water. How can you have an island? How can you have water if it was concentric circles of water? Well, the Taman Reset is a real thing. The Paleo River, there's the That says Hogar Highlands, but that's also called the Tamanrasset Mountain. And then you have the Atlas Mountains, and the water is coming from those two directions. And the Richat Structure is right down there. I can show you canals that connect those two things. Also, don't forget the ancient lakes, the Maghreb Sea. If there was the cataclysm, I think the water that flooded that whole area came from the Maghreb Sea.
Wow.
Yeah, lots to say. And that's just the, this is what I believe exists. That big, thick red line I'm showing you was the most likely route of the Tamanrasset. Now, that dark circle is an ancient mining hill. The longest train in the world brings iron ore from there every day. You can get on that train for free and drive it to the capital down by the ocean. But I kind of sometimes believe that the river didn't go that way. I think the river went this way, down below it. But what I do think is that north of that Desrochers Plateau, that's a 200-mile-long shoreline. And there you can see a dry lake bed down there. But then the sand covers it all up. And so I believe that whole area was an ancient sea. I also think that in those seawalls you mentioned, I believe down on the south side had an ancient sea as well. And I believe there was probably another outlet down here. But this red line, I believe that shows the pre-Ice Age shoreline. So when we talk about the Tamanrasset River exiting, we can't use the modern-day land shore as a reference point. But there is a shoal of mud right down there. However, the true place that the Tamanrasset exited is over here where that red line shows that. See how the change in color happens? I believe we're seeing that pre-Ice Age shoreline from there. And so I think that there was an ancient sea north of the Desrochers and an ancient sea south of the Desrochers. And look at that shape. It just feels like that river probably went this way. As opposed to back up. Oh, and here it shows that's the dry lake bed, and you can see the sand covering it up. This little line over on the left shows the North Desrochers Plateau shoreline, and I think you can see a couple of them, one at the top and one a little bit farther down. But then you get way down into that Playa Lake where you see the salt bed, and that's probably the bottom of the ancient sea. And you want to see how far it goes, but you don't see a shoreline over on that north part because it's getting covered with sand. So that could have been a really, and again, that thing I just showed you is over here off the photo. I call it the corner of the eye, Michele's curve. She's another friend of mine who I've never met. She showed me a lot of stuff. And this curve right here, I believe those were canal inlets. I found a lot of canals. Those red lines are those canals. And I walked down two parallel canals in the Desrochers Plateau. Also, I just feel like it's probably the right time to show you this other.
Yes, if you can gear it up, I have to do a very quick station and sponsor ID. So for those of you who are just tuning in, you are listening to The Outer Realm, and I'm your host for tonight, MicheleDerocher. Our special guest tonight is David Stig Hansen. We are talking about the Richat Structure and the African Atlantis, and it's quite informative. We've been having quite the slideshow. So tune on in. And for those just joining us, please know that we are also live on Rumble and on X. We can see your comments. We can put them up and share them with everyone. So please feel free to comment if you so choose. We were having a problem connecting with our Facebook page on Facebook, obviously, but apparently it is still showing. So I'm seeing a problem from the board, but apparently there's no problem and comments are coming in. So big thank you to Folgers Coffee. Thank you, Folgers, for sponsoring tonight's show, every night's show. We appreciate you so very much. I'm tongue-tied. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Also, big thank you, of course, to Justin Snicker and to Steve McGinnis. We appreciate you very much for all that you do for the show as well. So, guys, hold on, Folger. Yeah, okay, there we go. So, yes, thank you. Thank you, thank you. So, quick question for you. Stig, there we go. See, Stig knows. Folgers, that's right. There we go. Yeah. You'll have to do us a commercial. Kathy is saying, where is the Valley of the Whales from there? Do you know?
That's not something. I mean, I've seen whale bones shown before, saying there's full whales. I've never heard of the Valley of the Whales, but a lot of those whale photos I learned were not really taken from Mauritania. There was a, but definitely we have ancient seas all over the Sahara, and I mean, I didn't find any shells in the Richat structure when I checked. Graham Langdon found some shells outside of the southern. It's not really perfectly south, but it's kind of southwest. That entry point. If you go out into the middle of what I believe was an ancient sea, there are some shells there he found. But regarding the Valley of the Whales, or where those whale bones are located, I think that you probably can find them throughout the Sahara Desert in different countries like Algeria, maybe closer to the Mediterranean Sea. I'd have to do a little research, but instead of I did find some water in the Richat structure. This is water right here. It was a very wet season last year, and I believe the scan. I don't see the scan's ID. If I click on, there it is. 2024 it says, but still this water. And by the way, those guys. Sorry, Milo Rossi and Stefan Milo, the Milo brothers, the Milo brothers, they did this thing about the Richat that just totally triggered me. And they said there's no animals there. Well, that's not true at all. I've seen animals there. Okay. And if you're looking here, those are probably camels. Yeah, there's a lot of domesticated animals, but the camels, which are domesticated, do run wild through the Richat structure. And all over. So I've got a lot of almost hits. I saw one camel dead by the side of the road from a strike, unfortunately. And I do love all animals, and I've been doing some work on my house. That's why I'm wearing the hat. It's a little cold here. I mean, I do believe in climate change, but I just don't believe in man-made climate change. The sun is highly responsible for a lot of this. That's the castle. I went there. And I'm just showing you that the iron ore train I mentioned, we're going to go up to that little black circle and look at the iron ore train. You can, obviously it has nothing to do with Atlantis, but there's the longest train in the world, they say. And apparently you can jump on it right about here. And the name of that big black circle I just learned is Kedia Diddle. Yeah, I don't know how to pronounce that, but these are just some mining. That's the mining mound. And just, it's so out of place when you look at it sitting there. Like, why is it there? And who put it there? The city of Zorat. If you need an international airport, you can go to the city of Zorat, and it's right there on that side of the mound. And then I want to say Frederick, but it's Frederick, is on the other side of that mound over here. So there's cities there. I don't think I'd be very comfortable living there, but if there's foreign influence, you know, they have some nice hotels for the foreign people. Now, I'm just going over here to show you these canals, and I'm going to zoom out. Full disclosure, when I see stuff like this, I feel like it's okay. It's all coming from the mountain, this ridge here, right? I just feel like it's ancient mining, and I call those snail trails. And those snail trails are old because you can see where tectonic movement has separated them. But you also start to see what looks like canals going through there. So like more modern projects created these canals. The snail trails, okay, wait a minute. I'm going to go over to another mountain, the Tamanrasset mountain, and show you a few ridges up there. I believe they were used for controlling water. If you can see these, they look like they're going deliberately across this water river. So I do believe that these ridges were used for water control, 100%. But here you kind of see them going over the mountain and not controlling water. So what are they doing? Are they getting rid of some overburden dumping from mining, or what's also known as mine tailings? When they process material, they don't need it all, so they get rid of it. And so here's even a bigger version of what I think is happening there. These things to me, and when you see them go perpendicularly across each other, I just don't, after a while, believe they're natural. So I believe that people were moving mountains. And over back at the Richat Structure, here's an example of one of those so-called snail trails with an adjoining little tiny mountain. This is right by the Richat Structure. I'm going to zoom out and show you where we are. But if you saw what we were just at, there's the mining mound. I can't pronounce it. And there's the Richat Structure. So if the ancient Taman Reshet did go up over the mine mound and then back down, it went right through here. And probably came out, you can see, it probably came out right about here. It seems like this would be a good, but I think it came out. And by the way, when you look at river deltas, so the ancient coastline was here. And when you look at river deltas like the Nile, you have several places where it comes out. The Amazon River too, you've got a bunch of big islands in there. So I kind of believe that there were several, I think when you see this line, that was a place where water drained into the Atlantic. I think you can see it here. Those two are very curious, right? Those little points right there.
Yes.
But going back to my moving mountain, I do believe that people were doing stuff here. I believe, because look at this snail trail. You have it start and stop. They move over and start again. And then they do it for a long time. And then it seems to have turned. And it's going this way. This seems like it stopped and then started again. And that's where water would have passed through. And over here, now, not only did it stop and back up, it stopped and then it backed up and started again. And then you have a little mound in there. What happened? So, in my opinion, this is evidence something was going on. Yes, in the middle of the, Death Valley, you have rocks that have moved over plains for thousands of years, but this doesn't look like a rock that's drifting. It looks like it's attached now. And that little arc right there, that is probably a grave site. All these mounds right here, those are probably burial mounds, those little ones. But that arc, we call those these Eye of the Sahara. Anthony Tunstall introduced me to these things. I believe that the mound is right there in the middle. So, yes, it's probably a tumuli, in my opinion. Anthony doesn't think so. He thinks that they were used to demarcate water. We're going to get into the Richat Structure soon. I'm just kind of showing you other stuff. And I keep... we're going to get there. I promise. Coming soon. Back over here. So over here is where we start to see the chaos. I call it the chaos trails, the snail trails, but they're very chaotic because they're just all over the place. I don't really see an explanation in mainstream geology. And then we start to see the canals in this area. Check out this one right here. And when I click on it, you're going to see an intersection of some sort. And next to it is another intersection. I thought it was going to go to the left. It went to the right. But in my opinion, you can see one here. You can see one here. These, if they're not canals, then they were some type of a road and definitely some type of an intersection here again. And there were more. There were better ones. And maybe we're going to it now. Let's see. The Taman Reshet Canal, I called it, the intersection. This one is one of my favorites, and I've shown that. And you probably saw a few more passing by. So, I mean, I don't know. That's bedrock. It's an outcrop of bedrock, and something made that. I don't believe that's tectonic activity there. I believe what we just looked at was a series of canals that were created up by the northern part. Now we're back at the... obviously the Adrar Plateau. And what you're seeing here is what I believe is 200 miles of shoreline. And you see the Playa salt beds, the Playa Lake salt beds. There's no water there, but there's certainly a lot of dams there. Now I'm going to take you to a place that's south of here. It's called Tichit. Tichit also has a shoreline. But it also has these dams. Now, I used to think that was a dam. But then when you back out, you see there's some connection to the actual shoreline, too. Maybe a canal inlet. But honestly, maybe it was a road. because why would there be this line at the bottom? This is, if you look here, 3D. Actually, Google Earth Pro is not good for 3D. But if you go there, you see these dams. Over here, back at the Richat, you also see these. And I do believe it was a later project, because I believe this was a sea at one point. So somebody built this dam here, but it goes right under that sand. And you have a bunch of these shorelines. I'm sorry, I should have said walls. These walls are dams.
Walls. Right.
And they're below the shoreline. So I think they were maybe a later project. There's a couple of them that I tried to visit because they're so prominent. But these lines do exist, and they're probably newer than the cataclysm, some type of later. But they knew how to build walls and ridges. And here's another example of this wall starting and stopping and moving over to the right a little bit. I just don't see how that's a natural feature. And the last one, Michele's wall, this one is very short, and Michele Chen, she has a few things over here. I don't know if that's a canal or a wall or a gully, but
yeah, it's not very clear as to, it could be either.
It seems to move around here and then disappear, but it's very near Michele's arc. This arc is 10 miles in from here to here is 10 miles. And then down here is another canal that separates the Adrar. And there's a lot of small, what I could call canal segments, or like I showed you in South Africa, these ruts, straight line ruts going right next to cliffs. It looks like maybe some quarrying was done here, just like I showed you in South Africa. And there's some that are quite prominent, and then there's some that are quite subtle. I think this one is not. I mean, I think that's quite a straight line right there. And usually stuff like this starts from rivers, and there's not really a river here. I mean, there's a little bit of a water event. Something happened here with water, but not like a major water event created that. Usually when you get something like that, you can see clearly, like this one. Now that's more, maybe this was the one I said wasn't so impressive, because that could have been a water event. But it seems like you've got two, some kind of an intersection going on there. And maybe that's nothing. Maybe. This one that we're going to, though, I think is a little bit more interesting. It's very similar to that one down in the Teachit area where it seems to go across here. It even has a little notch here, maybe. So not sure what that's all about, but I do believe that it kind of shows a consistency in these weird things. Here's another one. That one, just a little too straight for me. I know how rivers work, and they usually aren't so straight.
No.
I call that a canal. Sorry?
For sure. I agree with you. Yes.
So even in the middle of the structure, I find some very interesting straight lines. And I showed you that LiDAR image. This is very close to that. That LiDAR image showed that this not only is a straight line going from what could be a canal here, but maybe it was a road. It goes, I drove right there. I was right there, and I stopped the truck, and I got out. I couldn't see anything. But when you back out, I've been looking at this straight line for all these years, and that LiDAR kind of demonstrates that it did actually go across. This is the Wadan River, Wadane, and it's a city right next to the Richat Structure, Wadane. Now, that river looks natural.
Yes.
You certainly do see a lot of straight lines intersecting with it right there. And then down here, we have that one I showed you. I think that may have been a road that went across here. And then there's this one that I didn't show. It goes straight up and down, north-south. That's the Richat Structure over on the right. But honestly, this thing looks like it could have been part of a canal system or segment here. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah, there certainly is. There certainly is.
Here's the mystery about this shoreline. And I do believe that it's a new theory that I don't really want to put all my weight against. But after this structure here, it seems like an ancient sea could have been held right there, and an ancient sea could have been held right here for sure, especially with my seawalls that I'll show you later. But over here, this thing, I don't see where these shorelines, how they could have happened unless there was some type of isostatic rebound, or maybe they had another seawall that washed away that made this a big sea. I don't understand everything, and I don't claim to know. But this, I call this big structure, actually, it's from another fan. She said it looked like Manhattan. And when you zoom into it, the real name is Imiert or Dar. And when you zoom into it, you can see this machining that occurred on top of it, in my opinion. Also, Michelle Chen that showed me those other items, she also pointed this out first thing, and I ignored it. And what I believe we see with this 45-degree angle, it's the first time. I think I can show this to you again and again. I think that's called a relief cut. So they have the straight lines. I just jackhammered a patio, and I broke it all up, but I couldn't get those pieces out until I created a relief cut so I could pull those pieces out. And I believe that 45-degree angle, which you see again and again and again, it was the status quo with this project.
Right.
And along, this is another shoreline. This is called the White Valley. And I believe that there must have been a lot of water in there to create what I believe is a shoreline. And then you can still see this 45-degree, maybe it's not quite 45, but they're all consistently in the same direction, that angle. You've got the straight ones going towards the shore, but then you've got that 45-degree relief cut. I believe it was not, they weren't quarrying blocks, in my opinion, and in my humble, and I do like to speculate a lot. They weren't quarrying blocks here. I can show you some other quarry fields where they were probably quarrying blocks. This is a 30-mile canal. The 30-mile canal is going right through there, in my opinion. And then you've got the White Valley, which is this other long gap. And just to me, it just seems like there was water there before. Now, right where it intersects, I know the guy that owns this place. I might try to get back in touch with him and go camping here. You want to go camping there? Are you ready to go to the Mauritania?
Oh, yeah, let's all go.
I'm not the first guy. By the way, Jimmy from Bright Insight talks about Ferguson and Graham Langdon. They both went there. We're all YouTubers. But the Germans have been going on vacation there for the last 30 years. They take their campers through Morocco and drive down. Josh Sugarson, he went through Morocco and entered Mauritania from the Moroccan or Western Sahara. By the way, I'll tell you another secret. When you go to Morocco, the picture of Morocco separated from Western Sahara doesn't exist. The whole thing is Morocco. So it's a little secret we don't know over here, but
secret. Yeah,
they're claiming it. Now, this is one of the first things I found here and here. Those are parallel canals. They're offset, but they're certainly parallel. And right in the middle of it is this thing I call Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, and his nose. And I'm going to talk about this area for the next few minutes. But these mounds here, I visited them. And that line going through the mound right there, there's another one going through this mound. Again, those two mounds are not as tall as the highest point in the Adrar Plateau. This over here is the highest point in the Adrar Plateau. So how is it a mountain or a mound is shorter than the plateau right next to it? I believe they were created, and you can see these straight lines going up against this top part. This is the highest point in the Adrar Plateau, and you've got these ancient quarry lines hitting that and going through to the other side. And one of them, if you see those, it's kind of tough for me to demonstrate it. One of them goes right out through the plateau nose. It kind of disappears, but once you get out there, I've got photos, and I probably have one in my presentation where I'm right there, and you can see that fissure or gap or rut or whatever you call it bisecting the mound. And then down here, you've got a saddle. Then this mountain has a name. That other mountain doesn't have a name. This is called, I forgot. And by the way, you can see another Eye of Africa. That's probably a burial site or a tumulus. It's not facing east. That's kind of different. Most of them face east, but that one is facing. The point is that there are many projects in this area. This is an important area for me. I went there. I walked down the parallel canals. We're going to visit the one this canal. I finally got there. I had to hike for about 1 kilometer. Later, I found out that we could have driven there. There's a part where the road cuts through, but I still had fun. And in my opinion, in my opinion, what you're looking at, okay, so it kind of gets full of dirt right about here. And I didn't walk down that far, but later on, it turns back into a canal. Okay, it goes across this area, but now you for sure can see. And by the way, this little side part might have been something significant. It seems like that was the only one that joined that canal. I think it was flood control. I think it could be flood control. And this high part was just west of what I think was the southern ancient sea. You can even see that canal seem to go across that river. So what is older, Is the straight line older, or is that river older? And it seems like it emptied right there into that river. So that other river may have been a later river. And there's the other canal. Now this canal, which I believe is parallel, it gets a little bit more degraded, especially up here. But you can still see that straight line kind of go into the Adrar highest point. That high point, what I called Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Right.
And, I just believe that's a cut. And over here, you start to see these quarry lines. And then later, they keep going straight, and they go up to that highest point. Where is it? Oh, it's over here. That's the Rudolph. That's the shining red nose.
Yes, the tip.
Those two mounds are aligned with, this is what I believe was the seawall. And I can show you in a topographical map instead of the Google Earth. This little wall here, this serpentine structure that you can see going across, it goes across an older plateau. Now it does lighten out, and you can see where it might have had an opening, but then over here it seems to start back up again. And in my presentation, I can show you those stones at the end. They don't look natural. And down here, we've got more lines. I just showed you that. This is almost, this is quite a bit. And we can take a break from this, and I can show you more of that later, because I really feel like.
Yeah, we've got about, I can go till about quarter. Well, I go to about quarter after, so that'll give you about 40 minutes.
We're gonna have to skip over some stuff. I just showed
you.
We're gonna skip over some stuff, but what everything's on my channel. What I just showed you, I call those twin peaks, those two mounds, and one of them has they both have bisections in them, and that high point and the seawall. And that's not the only seawall. The parallel canals on both sides of this structure, and all those lines represent quarry marks. There's the picture I took of that mound and that cut through. Now, when we talk about the ability to make canals, what about the Kalahari canals? What about the canals that are in Phoenix, Arizona? That's North America. And there's actually a matrix of canals there. So these ridges and water control, they're all over Argentina. I'm going to kind of skip over some stuff, but these rocks are underneath a layer of smaller broken up rocks, but they're carved. They look like they're put in there.
Do you know what they look like? They look like the Binami Wall.
Exactly. Yeah. I believe that. And then somebody gave me name Justice. He's an old guy that lives out there. He has a hotel. He gave me this picture and said, I didn't want to go to the Roman road that time. Michelle Chun was mad. She's like, are you crazy? I should have gone there. But I've never been to this place, but I do have the picture. So I think that this is all smoking gun and evidence. Yeah. Now, I'm going to go quickly. We have 25 minutes. There's a new find. There's a new Eye of Africa right there where that line is. And we have something called the ancient equator, where you've probably seen this picture. The line goes right through Mauritania, but it doesn't show anything. It shows Tassil Niger, Giza, Petra, all these ancient sites in this ancient equator.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And Easter Island. And right there, it goes right through Mauritania. This
That's
one
crazy.
over here, you can see it. But what I've always said is that ring, if you moved it over to the equator, it would be the same size. It's probably a previous axis of, and that means that Alaska, right there at the border of Alaska and Canada, was probably the North Pole. Maybe. But that must have been a long time ago. But this new structure is right here parallel. It's right there. And if you connect the centers, it creates a line that's parallel to this ancient equator. And look at this thing.
That's crazy.
This thing has a fissure going right through it. Probably a canal. It goes right to the center, then turns, and you can follow that canal for miles. It's also got these ancient ridges. Something was going on there, and it's aligned with our ancient equator. So there's a lot of things. There's other structures, but I'm worried. There's this other thing up in Algeria that looks similar. There's this thing over in Chad. The canals, that one connects the ancient Paleo Taman Reset to the North Shore. I think it goes around to the south side. I showed you these clusters. I showed you that already. There's canals everywhere. There's canals everywhere. And that's part of my 50-mile long one. At the time, I thought it was only 30 miles, but I found more pieces of it. These canals going through the Adrar, pointing right at the Richat Structure. And even after the plateau's gone, you have lines of trees. Okay. Okay. So we're getting to the quarries. This is just north of these lines here. To me, I don't think you can give erosion the credit for creating these lines on these plateaus. I think that by the way, how many different directions? You've got this one going this direction. You've got this one going that direction, but you've got a third set going this, creating triangles. In Utah,
they're almost like grids,
and I don't even see how that's actual quarrying right there. It seems like they were marking it for future quarrying. Here's another one nearby. And even Randall Carlson said, and I'll do it again, there were chert outcrops in this structure that were being quarried by somebody hundreds and thousands of years ago. Later, he said 1.2 million. And that's why I finally went back, my third trip. I had to visit. And that's where I went. These in the middle, in the center, not quite the center, on the outer ring, but what I believe, I walked there, and you can't see anything from the ground. Forget that. You've seen that, the 2 points, Twin Peaks. I guess I'm okay. Now, way over there is that seawall, and that's it. That's real geography right there. That's the end of it. So I just have so many questions.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
Okay. But by the way, up on the north part of the Richat Structure, you've got a 3-mile wide by 6-mile long quarry field that has all these. I used to think that was natural when I first started looking at this. I would zoom in and I would say, oh, look at the fractalization of these mounds. But then later I found more, and I'm just looking at these and feel like these 6-mile long lines are just a little too good to be true. That's the turn at 90 degrees.
Right.
A little closer. It looks like a lot of different projects happened. I'll show you where this is. We're going to go to the Richat Structure so I can give you how to get here by yourself. Now, you can always go to, I've got this Facebook page called Was This Atlantis? A lot of these have the coordinates where you can literally click right on the link and get there. But some people want to zoom in themselves. So you can already see the eye. And by the way, my history is 15 years ago, I said, wow, I've got a great internet connection. Sorry. It's time for me to start looking at the Sahara Desert. And I said, what the heck is that? It looks like an eye. And then I Googled Eye of Africa and found the Richat Structure. I said, oh my God, what created that? Now, I was going to take you, sorry, I always forget. I was going to take you here. So the way to get there, when you zoom in and go to the north shoreline, if you go directly north, that's where that whole area is. Right here. And over here is what I call the Giant's Quarry. And I just think this is just a little too incredible. I mean, in my opinion, this is also a smoking gun. Unfortunately, I don't have good LiDAR of this structure. And yes, I just don't believe that erosion, wind or water could have done this.
No.
And you see the 45-degree relief cuts. I call them 45. They're not exactly 45. But that's one structure. There's a couple of others that are similar to this. But I tried to go there. It's very difficult. And then right over here are these lines. And then right next to those are those hand axe heads somewhere over here. I don't know where exactly that Graham Langdon found those hand axe heads that I showed you earlier. And we'll see them again. I'm just basically, I probably am not going to get to show you what I know about North America. And
no, but you know what? Honestly, Stig, I think that would be great for a part 2.
Yeah, we'll do a part
North American stuff. Yeah, let's just finish up
like part 2.
Reshot. Yeah, we'll do a part 2, I promise. And we can handle North America and then just tie it together at that point.
This is still the Richat, though. It's still the Richat.
Yes.
Agriculture in the Richat. If you look at this LiDAR picture, you start to see straight lines over here. And over here next to the head of the Wadan River up here. If this Wadan River, by the way, it doesn't drain out. I know even Randall Carlson said water drained out. No, it doesn't drain out, especially now because the sand has spilled into the Richat basin. And you basically can't really tell how deep that little outlet could go. But at this time, the Wadan River flows into the Richat Structure and creates sometimes little lakes right about here. But up here at the head of the Wadan and down here at these other side rivers, I mean, over here, look at how up and down straight. That was like definitely a dam or a road that went across there. And then it turns almost 90 degrees. And then we've got several what I call agricultural ridges. I kind of glossed over the Kalahari canals, but similar to the Kalahari canals. We need more LiDAR. We need a lot more LiDAR.
I have a question. So what separates that from being, let's say, because we know what modern day quarries look like. So what this just to somebody, the untrained eye, they might look at that and say, you know what, this is just an ancient quarry. What makes it Atlantis, in your opinion?
Well, I think the story
having a trained eye.
Remember that the name Atlantis came from Plato. It came from the Greeks, right? The Atlantic Ocean, I believe, came from the Greek. We don't know what they called themselves, but now I have to refocus on the question. Restate the question.
Okay, so to the untrained eye, somebody may look at all this and say it's an ancient quarry. So to a trained eye, to someone like yourself who's been researching it, what ties it to, in your opinion, Atlantis?
Okay, the quarrying part and the Atlantis part, I can't really tie it in. I'm just showing you that in the Richat Structure, there was a lot of what I believe quarrying going on.
Right.
Mountain building going on. And
well, could it just the whole site be an ancient quarry? Is what?
Okay, so that's an interesting question. And I sometimes wonder if the Mediterranean Sea was not an ancient quarry strip mine. Some people say Lake Titicaca in Peru. And take a look at a series called Mind Earth. It's a YouTube channel / series, about 10 episodes. And that last episode just blew me away. Wow. And but to answer your question specifically, I can just say that I believe a lot of work was done on the top plateau, maybe pre-Atlantis. I think the stuff I showed you in South Africa over here, you can't get to these plateaus over here. These also have the same lines going in the same direction. Was this ancient east? This is a different spot I'm showing you. It's back over by the parallel canals. I walked down the canal right there. You can't get over here. And still modern day, these plateaus are literally, I mean, you'd have to go mountain climbing to get to the top. They look like they've been quarried and worked to me. And I mean, we have quarries and mines near our houses today. So I believe that it could have been an ancient civilization with lots of quarrying, lots of water control. Now, I'm looking, I want to get to a point where I show you my opinion. This is Pie Town, New Mexico. It's those, I showed you already. That's the spine of it. And this rock, I didn't take one from here, but I got one from a public area, is ferromagnetic. A magnet sticks to those. I showed you the water walls. We'll just go through. There's another water wall here, I believe. It's especially, there's cut throughs in this water wall, even a third one right there that I didn't show. There's an oasis right next to it. I'd like to go there someday. But down here where I showed you, that's Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. And that water wall, you can see in the topographical map, is quite, it looks like it was set right on top of a previous plateau. Look at here. You can see in this topographical map, it shows the feet. The highest is white. That's, this ridge is almost white. That's the highest part. Over here, the highest point on the Desrochers Plateau. But just below it, you've got also a very high point. A plateau itself, it looks like this was put right on top of it. And you see like two twin peaks? They're aligned with that point. I showed you that, those blobs, whatever they created that with. Okay, there's the parallel canals. There's the water wall. I believe it's just placed right on top of there. And then that was up there. And then down here, it seems to thin out. But when you get over here, there's another quarry. And yeah, I don't know where Randall Carlson got his quarry information, but where he got that number 1.2 million, he didn't say. And when I met him, I hadn't even realized I should ask him that question. So these two mounds are in the Grand Canyon, and these two mounds are in Utah. You can actually, there's three mounds over there. Actually, I used to call this a third mound right here. But actually, there's another mound in there. So maybe it's four mounds. But that's Utah. They're all aligned with that same Twin Peaks. So these mounds in Grand Canyon, I mean, I think it may have been some ancient north-south. Maybe. But it's not the ancient alignment. That's Grand Canyon. Everything surrounding there is what I believe is quarrying. This is called,
me, we could do a show just on the Grand Canyon. There's so much in there.
And Utah. This is Utah. Look at those peaks.
Right.
Look at those peaks. And there's another little mound right there. And there's a little ridge just going straight from this mound, going straight towards that mound. So, yeah, I think those plateaus are older. There they are again. And I think those are old. This is the, now, I'm just comparing them. We're not talking about North America yet, but there's other possible global quarries. That's Utah. That's the Grand Canyon. I believe there were different styles of, like, this is not taking out blocks. Like, that might be removing blocks, but that's not removing blocks. But what it is, it's placer mining, where they were bringing material to the rivers and throwing them in the water and letting the water process the material. And yes, time. But you see straight lines in there, and they're not all perfectly matched up. This is the Canyonlands, Utah. This is Tassil Najer National Park in Algeria. This place is crazy. And it's, you look at the serpentine, just like the one I showed you near the Richat. And then over here, maybe that was a flood event, but I doubt it. This guy did the videos in Utah. Some people call that jointing, mainstream. But I see this stuff everywhere, and I just have a hard time. That's the Kalahari Canals near the Okavango River Delta in the middle of Africa, right there. It's 250,000 square miles. Perhaps these are the canals Plato referred to when he said there were canals every 10 stadia.
Well, possibly.
So,
I mean,
back, yeah.
it's pretty compelling, you know.
This is it's very, very interesting, and we're gonna. And this is Namibia, and I have a hard time believing these are sand dunes. Some of those sand dunes are 200 miles long. That just doesn't add up.
No,
That doesn't add up. In fact, those ridges don't look like sand. And then the Tibesti Mountains. I'm looking at the time because I still have to talk about what I believe destroyed. And in Tibesti Mountains has some crazy terraforming. And you can tell by the angles of these things that they're not natural. They're not natural directions of water.
No, I agree.
All right. Oh, we're getting to the end.
Yes.
This is a sneak peek.
Okay.
That's a sneak peek. I'm just going very fast. This is the stuff that the longest ridge I found is in New Mexico. It's 13.5 miles. I found these things everywhere. I believe there were projects, big and small, these dikes. Okay, let me get out of here so I can pretty much just go forward because I've definitely monopolized. Oh, look how close we are. Look at these things in Russia. How could those be volcanic dikes where the mound below it eroded down? I just don't see. And then back in Algeria and Libya, and this thing that looks like something that came off a welding. Like, have you ever been in a machine shop where they weld stuff? I believe that these mountains here that look like a matrix were probably that same thing. They were like doing some kind of a process. These little balls that they find all over the place in Libya, called Planetary Valley because they look like planets. These circular dikes in Niger. Okay, those are all sneak peeks. We're gonna get back. Okay, we got 7 minutes.
Yeah,
I have a possible creation explanation.
Okay.
Because I don't think it's a volcano, but it's 45 kilometers wide. A lightning strike on a car has these rings in it, these possible frequency, like cymatic frequencies, like in musical notes.
Yes.
Look at D, look at A, you know, look at G2. There's so many possibilities. What frequency could the Richat structure have been? There's something called a Birkeland current. I don't really think it was electricity, but I think it was possibly plasma. And that plasma, what's the word? It transmitted this frequency.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. The basin of the Richat structure is 800 foot.
D's pretty compelling. Yeah.
D looks like a real winner, and
it does.
The other ones, A looks good, but there's also more notes than just these two.
Yes.
This is something that I've tried to play with, but I haven't gotten very deep in. But just the idea that check in my videos. By the way, if you're familiar with Adapt 2030, David Dubine, his first videos, top secret, don't tell him I told you this, are on my channel. And it was about comet ison coming in, going around the sun, and going back out. On the way in, it had, I don't have the slides prepared, but it had interaction with Mars. It had interaction with Jupiter. And if you know about the Pearl of Strings with Jupiter, Jupiter got in the way and saved Earth and magnetically pulled in broken pieces of a comet called the Pearl of Strings. I think this may have happened here. These are all craters. Now, the one down here is not as, I didn't visit it. I should have tried. It was pretty close. But, you know, you can only go so far by 4x4. That little trip to the Twin Peaks, you can see that's right by Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and those Twin Peaks. And trust me, that was a long, hard drive. It was not fun. It was very uncomfortable. It's a 4x4 trip. And I couldn't visit this, but they say it's older than the Ice Age. The Semisiat Dome, probably an impact, or maybe some structure built by Atlantis with all those roads next to it. But right in the middle of the Richat structure. Now, people get confused. They think I'm talking about the Richat structure itself. I'm not. I'm talking about the heart of salt, Sebket El Guelb. It's right there. It's that white circle. I was told it's a volcano, but I didn't believe it. I went there. The video I took is not here, not available. But I created this on the left. Wouldn't this be more likely if it was whether it's a volcanic dome, which actually volcanic domes fold over, so they're not as beautiful as this Richat structure. So maybe it's my cymatic theory, or maybe it's also tectonic, but those rings should be complete. Instead, you're missing a quadrant of mountains.
Right.
And by the way, you say that's not a perfect crater. Okay, wait a minute. The Sebket El Guelb has alluvial fans. Now, when I visited it, I was on this road, and I got out and I took a video. You can see my channel, and you can see how this looks from the ground. But there's a big alluvial fan right here. There's alluvial fans everywhere around this, but there's also a rim. You can still see the rim. And here, this is it. You can see the alluvial fans covering up that playa lake, but you can also see the rim. Now, I was determined to go there and follow the instructions of the guy who does Cosmic Summit, George Howard. And he's the one that did the paper back in the day on the Carolina Bays. And I said, George, how do I know that's a crater? He said, take an iron bar and rub it in the dirt and collect the impact proxies, the nanospherals, and then you put them under a microscope. Well, the people I was with said, no, you can't do that, David. And so I didn't try to sneak out there and do it. And also with all these alluvial fans, you'd really have to find the right spot. Maybe here, I think on the south side over here. This is another great shot of it, obviously from space. And you see the alluvial fans covering that disc, even over here. I believe that's a crater. I believe that's a crater. And I believe that is the possible destruction of whatever civilization lived there, whether Atlantis or another civilization. That's why it's been totally cleared. That's why.
I'll tell you something. What really attracts me to all of this is the fact that it's the similarities between this structure along with other structures throughout the world that are like through ancient times. It shows this grand similarity that whatever civilization it was, being one or being several, that they were doing the same thing. So that is pretty cool to me. And I'm really looking forward to part 2 and having you come back, and we'll do North America and then try to tie things together and show those similarities and get into maybe, other areas throughout the world eventually and tie it together, because I really feel that whoever they were, it's like we see the pyramids, all these similarities. We see these ancient mounds, all these similarities, all of these petroglyphs, all of these hieroglyphs. It's just, there's too much that's the same. And your presentation has just shown this is one more thing that has one of those similarities.
Yeah, there's just too much similarities, like you said.
It's pretty.
And I don't expect to know the answers before I die. But what I do want to do is share this with the world, And that's why I'm begging people to subscribe and share and like and share. And if I do a live stream, interact with the live stream so it gets shared. I shared this on Twitter and I shared this on my YouTube channel. And after it's over, I'll share it. But honestly, how many I didn't put in the picture where I met Jimmy already twice. And the people who comment on my videos who are newcomers, they put comments like, "Oh, Jimmy Corsetti." It's like, okay, I know Jimmy. Jimmy knows me. And Jimmy is doing some. He was on Joe Rogan today and showing stuff that Baalbek and so much. I think that's a very important. But they seem to be focusing. Graham Hancock is a wonderful person, and he just did the second season of Ancient Apocalypse, and but all this stuff with the Flint Dibble and all these drama is. I don't want the drama. I want to focus on evidence, and I think that ancient Peru was a mine.
I think
it's all about mining. I think it's all about mining and water control.
We'll talk about, North and South America, because I think you can lump that in together. And I would agree with you. There's a lot there that goes back long before the last ice age. So tell everybody again how to get a hold of you. I also on X, this did air live on X. You could share it over to your page if you want to. They'll have the show right there. So how does everyone get a hold of you? Just
Thanks for
fire
sharing
off.
that. That link is good. YouTube changed their thing and they gave us a shorter at the ampersat, right? The arroba, it was just the at sign, the A with the circle. It used to mean each, or the price is at $1. That at sign kind of took over. It's kind of hard to say. YouTube.com/ampersat Stig, and you can find me real quick. Or just look up David Stig Hansen. You'll find me pretty quick.
Right.
I'm pretty transparent.
That's how I found you, just saying. So anyway.
Yeah. Well, it's funny, that guy, I've had a few friends where other friends, YouTubers, bigger than me, and they say, have you heard of this Stig guy? And they're coming to me telling me people are hearing, but I only have 12,000 subscribers and I've been doing YouTube since 2008. I think I'm shadow banned, possibly for other stuff I've done.
You need to get on Rumble and start there, because
you're probably right.
There.
I'm just kind of lazy, and I make $25 a month on YouTube right now.
Right.
And I've spent over $10,000 going to the Richat Structure 3 times. Right. I'd like to go back one more time in January. You don't want to go there. Nobody asks questions about going and how to get there. You can always revisit that and contact me directly.
Yes.
I was going to say, kind of forgot what I was going to say, but
what's your email?
Yeah, the email is my name at Gmail. My full name, David, Stig, Stig, and then Hansen, Hansen, at gmail.com.
There we go. So
yeah, let's talk. And if you know LiDAR, let's talk. If you want to go to the Richat Structure in January, let's talk. I'm going to the Giant's Quarry. I'm going.
So we will leave that right there, because I do have to sign off. So thank you so much, Stig, for joining us. I was waiting very patiently for this segment, and I will email you and I will go over next available dates. There will be a bit of a wait, but we will do it, and I'm looking forward to the part 2 already.
Lots of exciting stuff, and I gave you plenty of hints, and the viewers can always go to my channel if they want to take a quick look. I've shown everything on YouTube, and but I definitely want to get back on with you and show you, and I hope that I did a great job for your listening audience.
You did a fabulous job, and I definitely will have you come back on, and I will email you with some dates.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thanks
again.
Good
Bye.
night. Okay, guys, that was very interesting. I love show and tell. I love slideshows. Fantastic. So big thank you to David Stig Hansen, for joining us this evening. And thanks to everybody who hung in there. I know we're over a few minutes, and we appreciate you all hanging in there. So tomorrow night, guys, we welcome the return of Micah Dank, who's going to be sharing more of his research on astrology with an ancient text. He's covered the Bible. He's done the Book of Enoch. This time, he will be discussing the various ancient Sumerian texts. So make sure you tune in. So thank you to Folgers for sponsoring us tonight, every night. Thank you. We appreciate you so very much. Thank you very much to Dr. Snick, Justin Snicker, Steve McGinnis. We just appreciate everything you do for us. You have been joining the Outer Realm tonight with our special guest, David Stig Hansen, live on United Public Radio Network 107.7 FM, New Orleans. And we shall see you guys tomorrow night. Thank you and good night.